Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 21 CD show. Today you can see me adorned in an Ayauma mask. The Ayauma is kind of a trickster entity, a guardian. He's a challenger, reminding people that order only exists because of disorder, and that society needs to confront its shadow. Now, the dancer who typically wears the Ayauma mask often provokes, he mocks, he tests the villagers, and sometimes he even hits them with sticks or whips, trying to taunt him into his dance, right? And it's believed that this is a way that these ancient Quechua people would purge bad energies and sort of reconnect, all right? The Ayauma is a mask that has essentially two faces on it. There you go. Okay, one looks forward and one looks back, obviously, and that kind of symbolizes the duality of existence. We got the past, we got the future, we got life, we got death, etc., etc., etc. And Aya in Quechua means spirit or soul, while Uma means head, so it translates the spirit head. And often the Ayauma's costume is covered with animal skins and bells or ropes. And that kind of emphasizes this being's role as a sort of liminal being that straddles the human and natural realms. And the Ayauma is a big part of my family's culture. Not my Caucasian family, but I am 50% something else, Ecuadorian and Colombian. And it is deeply ingrained in that part of my culture. So we are wearing it today because we are chaos sowers who are here to remind the people that a little disorder is necessary, to remind them, to bring them home to order. Somebody's got to be the oblivion sower, right? Somebody's got to be the chaos bringer. So Epstein, you little twat. Let's get this show on the road, man. Why are we still talking about this fucking idiot? Why do we still have to go on and on about Epstein? Why are they telling us that it's not real? And why do Muslims exist? I'm just trying to figure this out. Why is Islam a thing? Can we just fucking get rid of that shit? At the same time, can we just throw all the trans people in the fire too? Like, can we just... Man, it's getting old. Let's go on. I've been seeing amongst the grapes upon the grapevine that there's a new phrase that I haven't heard. It's called Project Genesis. This is a title of a project, allegedly the beginning of something, hence Genesis. But I'm just throwing that out there as a possible idea. Now, the phrase Project Genesis doesn't really seem to appear in any, like, corporate charter or indictment, right? Like, it's a conspiracy theory. The name Project Genesis is a conspiracy theory, okay? Yet, when the public record tied to Jeffrey Epstein is assembled into this sort of continuous narrative, the outline of a private program does seem possible, okay? The record points to this sort of offshore corporate shell company that obtained extraordinary tax and regulatory shelter, like a church, basically. A repeatedly advertised ambition to aggregate human genetic data with explicit statements that are attributed to Epstein about using his DNA in reproduction, institutional access that supplied reputational cover, and financial channels that smoothed operations across borders. And we all know about that. Together, all of these elements form a plausible architecture, if you will, for essentially a private project that is aimed at controlling heredity. The question is not whether the phrase existed on paper. Project Genesis, right? This mask is riding up.
Damn. I can't see fucking shit out of this thing.
My beard is too big. The question is whether the pieces that would make such a project possible were present, and whether the documentary trail that would prove or disprove its existence is still readable and out there. The question is remaining for me, okay, if there's no list, can you at least tell us what the hell was going on? But no, because there's no list, we're just like, oh, well, there's no list, so there's nothing to know. Well, what actually happened? Just because there's no list doesn't mean nothing happened. If you were really an informant, Mr. Trump, what exactly did you see? At the operational center of this whole architecture is a company called Southern Trust, which is established by, guess who? Epstein, in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And this was done in 2012. Southern Trust described its work in terms of biomedical, and financial information. The Virgin Islands Economic Development Commission granted Southern Trust multi-year incentives that effectively reduced tax exposure to a small fraction of what comparable businesses on the mainland would have to pay. And the territory later lodged civil claims too, questioning whether Southern Trust produced the deliverables it promised when it sought those incentives. So clearly, Epstein's little shell company is delivering something and isn't just, you know, a funnel. There's something coming in and going out. And those filings are the first archival anchor in the whole investigation, okay? They establish an offshore vehicle operating in a permissive jurisdiction and claiming a public health mission that, on its face, could be used to collect and store biological samples and sensitive personal data away from the usual regulatory lights. Now listen, there's a lot of information in this little here write-up that I've got, that I've been working on, and it's freaking crazy. And I know it's kind of confusing too, because this is the Epstein story that you may have not have been told, okay? And this is more of like the hard facts of the dealio. This is not some little, oh, I'm fantasizing that possibly Epstein was... No, Epstein is the most mysterious man in the world, and he did these things. And these things are now gonna be your knowledge. So take them, put them in your brain, and let's get a move on. Intertwined with this shell company, Southern Trust, is the public description of some kind of ambition that sounds like a modern genomic enterprise. This company had something to do with the gene database. In later reporting, Epstein was described as pitching a search engine for genetic predispositions. What? And that phrase maps readily to what industry practitioners call a biobank, plus analytics platform, a system for ingesting DNA samples, linking them to medical and lifestyle metadata, and building predictive models. Whether that aspiration was fully realized in practice is really not proven, but it must be valuable to the government, right? Because they're not going to tell us about it. What is documented is the pitch and the fundraising posture. Those facts create a clear, documented investigative vector. A project with that shape requires sample collection points, cold storage equipment, laboratory consumables, high density computational resources, and specialized staffing. This is a very in-depth operation. This is not something that you or me could just pop up in there and start. Somebody has connects, and it's Mr. Steen, the Epi himself. Each of these requirements that I just mentioned leaves purchase orders and shipping, I mean, somebody's got to carry this stuff in and out. There's got to be receipts, vendor invoices. I mean, the paper trail has got to be damn near endless. More paper, you could say, than I go through when I wipe my ass after Taco Bell. I haven't had Taco Bell in a month. If you want, that could be my next upload. I could try to see how much paper that actually is. I bet it's absolutely diabolical, okay? How have we not found any of these receipts? All of those transactional records are, in essence, the fingerprints that would show whether this ambition, this bio data What the fuck are we talking about here? What is this? Some kind of biobank of all your genomes, and they're trafficking humans to get it? That's kind of like, what? And this is known? And we're not gonna show us the list? We shouldn't know who these people are? Because if we had this stuff, it would definitely move beyond rhetoric, which is what we have now, a bunch of people talking about this, and it would move deeply into the realm of like operational reality, where we can now begin to pick this apart and hang people from trees and stuff like that. Epstein himself said some weird stuff about reproduction. Credible reporting captured conversations in which he is literally caught saying and speaking about seeding the human race with his DNA and impregnating women at properties such as Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. And those statements, if accurate, are explicit expressions of an intention to translate data into progeny. Motive matters in any probe, right? So once motive is on the record, the questions become naturally narrower, because they gotta fit to the motive. That's why the motive is important. That's why you hear people say, well, what's the motive? The motive determines all this other stuff. It determines what questions to ask. It determines how to investigate. It determines who to investigate. So did deliveries of embryo-grade freezers, cryogenic equipment, or assisted reproduction supplies reach locations under Epstein's control? Did clinics receive payments from shell entities with names tied to Southern Trust? Did any vendor ship laboratory or reproductive hardware to properties associated with Epstein that are consistent with the procurement activity that has been reported elsewhere? These, I should say, are routine documentary questions. Like these is the answer no? Because this should be one of the first things that's tackled. But we're just like kind of led to believe that none of this matters anymore. These are the kind of things a search warrant or a subpoena should turn up. But for some reason, it either hasn't, and we've been led to believe that it has, or it has, and we've been led to believe that it hasn't. Anything but the truth. Now, institutional access provided reputational insulation that is essential to understand. Epstein donated to major universities and cultivated relationships with prominent scientists. This is known. This dude was a little slut, and he was trying to get into everybody's pants. Literally. Harvard received gifts over many years, including a notable sum directed to the program of evolutionary dynamics. Harvard's internal review later documented abnormal access, including an office and keycard privilege that persisted in ways the university described as inappropriate. And the function of that access is not to prove wrongdoing by researchers. Its function is to explain how a wealthy donor with unconventional interests can acquire introductions, a veneer of legitimacy, and the sort of reputational cover. He can just do this obscene thing that he's doing and nobody cares. And this makes vendors and contractors more comfortable working with somebody like this man on a, let's just say, proposed research project. That credibility lane matters because it is literally the channel through which procurement decisions and institutional partners are negotiated. So if none of those people want this to get out, guess what? It's not gonna get out. So financial facilitation completes the architecture. Litigation has shown that major banks processed Epstein-related transactions, and that settlement documents contain narratives about wire transfers, payment descriptions, and vendor names. So we do have receipts. The U.S. Virgin Islands and other plaintiffs have said that financial institutions failed to properly scrutinize this suspicious activity. Bank settlements resolved in the hundreds of millions of dollars disclosed the existence of complex cross-border payments and shell entities. For forensic purposes, those banking records are gold because they can show where money actually went and which vendors or clinics were paid. Money traces the operation more reliably than this weird rhetoric that we're having. Just look where the money went. Look where it went. Just follow the money, as they say. We're already starting to see a sort of global web being built here. And man, the more global something gets, the less likely you're ever going to get rid of it. So this dude was just, he just let it go too long and established himself. Now, layered over all these structural facts and all this BS are the names and interactions that give this story a real gravity. And we've been wanting the names forever, right? So when I talk about this stuff, like I said in my post, I'm not trying to prove or disprove anything. I'm just saying what's real, okay? And you guys have to go ahead and fill in the blanks, okay? This isn't really me out here trying to be like, oh, because I don't have the list. You don't have the list. Ain't nobody got the list. There ain't no list, right? So just take what I'm saying with an understanding that this is probably like the hardest facts, but I'm not trying to like convince you of anything. I'm just telling you stuff. So one of these names is Ghislaine Maxwell, and she is a convicted participant in Epstein's trafficking network, and her conviction and sentence are on public record. She's like the second most mysterious person in the world, okay? We know that she worked with Epstein. We know that she helped traffic, and she seems to be willing to provide a list of her own. There are other figures linked by association, okay? We know that he was deeply connected, but right now we're talking about Ghislaine. There was also this Denise George fella as the Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands, and she played a central role in pursuing civil remedies and public filings that exposed many of the financial and territorial arrangements. Now, these names aren't just idle names. They are the nodes in a social and, honestly, deeply corrupt financial network whose documented transactions and communications are subject to subpoena. Somehow these people are just still out and about. Ghislaine's not, but she's like the sacrificial lamb. She's their Charlie Kirk.
Damn! I'm sorry. Because it was a thought. No, seriously. It was a thought. It was a thought, and I blurted it out. I did not mean it that way.
I'm fine.
Okay, but just understand, I didn't mean it the way it came out.
We'll take a poll on how you meant it with people here later after the show's over.
So I want to go back to that bitch, because I hate her. Ghislaine Maxwell was and is the operational linchpin in Epstein's social and logistical network, and therefore a central figure to investigate for any program that people are now calling this Project Genesis. She recruited and moved victims. She arranged travel and property access. She handled social introductions to powerful people and maintained the social infrastructure Epstein relied on. In a way, Ghislaine Maxwell was actually way more important than Epstein. What is new and urgent right now is that Maxwell has been in sort of these proffer sessions with federal prosecutors and has given extended interviews that are now part of the public record in redacted transcript form. And those transcripts and the circumstances of her recent DOJ meetings dramatically raise the possibility that she does have knowledge and documentary leads relevant to everything from flight manifests to donor routing memos to on-site procurement at Epstein's properties. Now, I'm going to lay out some of these verified facts, some of this new material, how her documented behaviors map onto the Project Genesis architecture, the exact documents you should be hunting down if you want to turn all of this into proof of something. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted in federal court and sentenced in 2022 for her role in Epstein's scheme, his sex trafficking scheme. And the U.S. attorney describing the sentence made clear the conviction rested on Maxwell's active participation in recruiting and facilitating the abuse of minors. This criminal conviction establishes beyond a reasonable doubt that Maxwell was not a passive associate. She was literally a hands-on participant in every single step: the travel, the recruitment, the grooming, the logistics, the interpersonal relationships. All of this undergirded Epstein's criminal enterprise and just kind of cements Maxwell as basically the most important person in this thing. Trial exhibits and civil filings from victims supply the document trail that shows how Maxwell worked as an organizer. Those records include Those records include deposition testimony and victim statements and court exhibits that describe her arranging travel, requesting specific types of victims, coordinating with pilots and household staff, and running social events that normalized access for Epstein and his circle to at-risk individuals. And the court record, therefore, places Maxwell in the center of Epstein's operational life. She is the person who converted social acquaintances into accessible bodies and who smoothed the logistics for travel and private access. Maxwell sat for proffer interviews with the Department of Justice. Redacted transcripts, now they've been redacted, were released to the public domain by the DOJ. And those transcripts show Maxwell engaged in extensive discussion with federal agents and prosecutors under a proffer agreement. The existence of a proffer does not mean she struck a cooperation deal, but it does mean that she provided testimony and was questioned under conditions that often precede cooperation. Do you guys understand what's happening? The content of those interviews may be new, and there's concrete sources of information that could contain names, dates, flight logs, and details at least, vendor references, receipt, all the things that we've been talking about that we need. In other words, what I'm saying is Maxwell has all of this, but we're not allowed to hear what she has to say. Now, these transcripts also reportedly contain Maxwell's answers to questions about these other high-profile people, the list, and in the newly released materials, Maxwell denies witnessing inappropriate acts by certain public figures that have been named while she was with Epstein, like Trump, okay? Those denials are significant for a reason, and it's because they are explicit assertions in a formal DOJ proffer context. It's legitimate, according to them. They also define the limits of what Maxwell will or will not corroborate for investigators and for the public record. From a practical standpoint, it appears those denials are as useful as affirmative statements because they do allow investigators to rule in or rule out lines of inquiry and to press for documents that either confirm Maxwell's account or contradict it. So Maxwell's historically documented role makes her uniquely positioned to know and to produce the documents that matter to an alleged Project Genesis inquiry. If we were to dig into this, which we are, it's just Project Genesis itself is the idea that Epstein wasn't just doing this because he wanted to get his little pee-pee up. It's actually because he's actually like taking these people's bio data. He's probably creating like Nephilim or something. Like, I'm so tired of these elites constantly talking about how they're going to biomodify us. And if you look into this stuff and you find out that like Maxwell and Epstein were doing something like that, like sure, they were raping these people too, but also they were taking their bio data and trying to weave their seed into a bunch of people, which is fucking crazy. That is way worse than what we've been led to believe. And that definitely invites a question, doesn't it?
Bezos.
Is sex trafficking tame compared to what was actually going on? And that's why we can't know about it? Is all of this actually like... If he really is doing this, and he really is working with Bill Gates, which is something that I've heard... I heard that he worked with Bill Gates, and I heard that Bill Gates was very, very interested in his research. And we know that Bill Gates is a fucking mega freak because look at what he does. He wants to buy up all the farmland. He wants to make all of the food fake. He wants to stop everything that you guys eat, which is going to be another episode coming up. I'm writing it right now. As you guys can see, I read notes. It's a lot to go through, okay? My brain can't hold all of this, so I gotta write stuff down. But Ghislaine Maxwell, by the way, learned everything that she knew from her Jew father, Robert Maxwell. This dude shaped his daughter's life in ways that mattered to every subsequent public scandal that she inhabited. He was a Czechoslovakian-born media guy who rose to become one of the most powerful and controversial publishers in Britain. Just another Jew. His life and death were dramatic and messy. Not messy enough, if you ask me. I wish that he would have been torn apart at the sternum, just boosh. And there was just Maxwell all over the wall. I wish that's how it happened. But instead, that didn't happen. I don't know how he died exactly. I don't really care. I'm just happy that he's dead. Her dad was, and this isn't about her dad, so I'm not gonna go too deep, but her dad was every bit as evil as she is and taught her everything he knows. And he had all of these connections. Did I mention he was a Jew? And he had all of these connections to all these different people. He had all of this money, and he brought his little girl along, and he groomed her into this lifestyle. And then he released her to target Epstein. This is real. This is real. Among the more consequential, documented contacts are those between Epstein and Bill Gates and those between Epstein and Donald Trump. And these contacts are confined to verifiable events. Everything I'm saying is verified. Like, this is not stuff where I'm out here like, ooh, I wonder. No, it's verified stuff. Bill Gates met with Jeff in New York in 2013. A meeting acknowledged by Gates representatives. Flight manifest and reporting placed Gates on an aircraft associated with Epstein in March 2013, traveling to Palm Beach from New York. Now, at issue for investigators is not the fact of the meetings, but the documentary trails that passed through those moments. We got to think about that because it's similar to this Charlie Kirk thing. People think it's like, I don't know, like, what is that show, CIS? What, CIS Miami? What is that show where the fake cops go out and do the most ridiculously fake cop stuff ever, and all the evidence is just poof right in front of you, and if there's no evidence, it must be a conspiracy theory, and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's not like that. You can't, this stuff needs to be unwrapped. And so just because Bill Gates, this is what they will say. We know because we're not idiots, but they think we're idiots. And so they tell us stuff like, look, just because Bill Gates met with Jeffrey Epstein doesn't mean he's one of them. And that's allegedly what, is the case in the world. And that's why Bill Gates is still allowed to wander around and touch, do all that kind of stuff, and like cannibalize people and murder them and secretly have all of these probably tunnels where there's a bunch of people living that aren't supposed to be down there and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so but we're not talking about any of that, and just pretend I didn't even say any of that. As a matter of fact, if you meet with an inherently evil man who wants to create a biobank and seed the universe like he's Genghis Khan or something, and he's going to kidnap women and children and allow all of his rich Jew buddies to fuck them, I'm sorry, but just meeting with him does make you a bad guy. That's why I don't allow Islam anywhere near me. If it's near me, I will get it away from me, okay? Because I just don't allow certain things near me, because why would I? And it's the same thing with this. So anybody who ever talked with any of these people, you are guilty by association, I think. Because automatically, you should have assaulted that person, and you should have put them in a rear naked choke, and automatically, it should have been like a human instinct of yours to literally choke the life out of this pedophilic vampire. But that doesn't happen, of course. Instead, as they say, just if you can't beat them, join them. And nobody could beat Maxwell and Epstein because they had every connection in the world. So everybody just kept joining them. You would literally have to arrest thousands of people. Think about all the things that went into place. All the people who built on the island. All the captains of the ships. All the sailors who sailed the ships. All the people who drove the cars. All the people who, did anything that they had to do. The caterers, the cooks, the cleaners, all these people. They're all guilty, okay? I don't care what anybody says. All these people need to be round up and put in a little fucking cage in the middle of a field somewhere, and I need to be able to be allowed to fly a drone over them. That's what I think should happen. Internal communications at MIT recorded language that a gift was from Bill Gates directed. Bill Gates gave Jeffrey Epstein some kind of gift. And MIT verified this, and those internal lines are on the public record. So Gates has come out and of course publicly said that meeting Epstein was a mistake, and his office has denied that Epstein ever directed Gates in any way. And the dispute between institutional emails and public denials is precisely the material that investigators should be probing. They should pull the routing memos, the gift agreements, the development office notes, and the meeting calendar entries, and then we would know whether Epstein simply introduced a donor or whether he drafted certain conditions for business, right? I don't understand, like, how we can't find this stuff. This seems pretty easy. It's like who's that Haji slut that is Elon Omar or whatever her name is? It's like her. You incestuous little whore. You're out here marrying your brother to get into the United States, and your net worth quintuplets. I don't even know if that's a word, but it gets really big. What is it, 30 million? And like 4 years ago or whatever, she was negative 40K. What is going on? I don't understand how that is not shut down in a single day. It's pretty cut and dry. There's no court that should be able to protect you from something like that. But that's the problem, because in the USA, the courts really mean nothing. The courts really mean nothing. They're only the way that the people in power can suppress us and protect their own. They just pay the courts so that they are above the law and we are below it. Not only are we below it, but we will also be convicted of crimes that they commit. So it's just like, this whole thing is it just stinks to high heaven of, yeah, everybody was covered up. We all know it, but there's really nothing we can do because the court. And there's all these ways that you could find the proof, but the courts. Now, when it comes to Donald Trump's social relationship with Epstein in earlier decades, that's also documented. And we have photographs of it, contemporary accounts, and public remarks. We've got all sorts of data about this. And, you know, those facts establish proximity and shared social circles, which are definitely problematic. But again, does proximity make him guilty? The courts will ask. Because he is so close, and because it looks like he's guilty, does that mean he is? Well, he's on all these guest lists. He's in all these pictures, all this stuff. He's got letters and whatever, all that kind of stuff. I don't know what he's got. Probably all sorts of stuff. He's probably got a pair of Epstein's panties in his fucking underwear drawer right now. These people love each other. They love each other. They're all like on each other. Like, I'm not even joking. These people are like adrenochrome, gay, transvestite weirdos. These people are not normal. And they choke on each other's balls constantly. So what do we have? Inside of these shared social circles, we do have membership logs and co-hosted events, guest lists, and transactional receipts that investigators can examine to determine whether logistical or financial overlap even existed. Again, proximity is not proof, but it does define the next step. So the dossier is built on a tight separation between verified record and reasoned ideas, like reasonable ideas for what could have happened. And the verified record includes corporate filings and EDC approvals for Southern Trust, Epstein's documented public pitches concerning a genomic search engine, Epstein's recorded statements about reproductive intent, Harvard's gift records and access issues, MIT's internal emails, and the various bank and
3 hours later,
territorial litigation documents and settlements that describe payment flows and procurement narratives. We've got all these. From these facts, one can really only reasonably construct one idea, right? And that's that there was some weird shit going on and everybody involved is guilty. But that's not what they come to. So basically, this is what you have. Southern Trust is this offshore collection, Epstein's thing, Maxwell's thing, Gates' thing. I'm not going to say any other names. I hate these three so much. So I'm going to spit some rhetoric for you. And this is like an FBI-style investigative process, if you will, for how we can shut this down once and for all. So first, obtain the EDC application and monitoring reports for Southern Trust and related communications with territorial officials. Just do it. Those documents will list job claims, capital plans, vendor names, and performance metrics. We'll get a pretty good picture of who all is involved. Second, we need to demand the full exhibits and dockets in civil suits and bank settlements to see the payment narratives and vendor invoice names that have been described in reporting. Third, we need to subpoena donor files, routing memos, meeting minutes. We need to figure out who's all giving stuff to Epstein, okay? The MIT example with its notations about a Gates-associated gift is precisely the kind of file that we need to request. We also need to request FAA and operator manifest for aircraft associated with Epstein for dates in which high-profile contacts occurred. Flight manifests provide a definable record of co-presence that narrows witnesses and dates pretty much down to exactly who was on the airplane. Okay, why do we not have this? Why are we not allowed? Well, I mean, the FBI has it. Why are we not allowed to know the truth of this? We then need to request port and shipping manifests and customs entries for shipments to Little St. James and this Zorro Ranch, looking specifically for laboratory freezers, cryogenic stuff, centrifuges, and other reproductive or cold chain gear. And those manifests will show whether equipment consistent with wet lab and reproductive work ever arrived at the properties in question. Then we need to subpoena clinic contracts and vendor invoices for fertility services that might show payments from shell entities connected to Southern Trust. This is how we pin it down. Those contacts, if they exist, will connect procurement to application, and that would essentially be a smoking gun. But we gotta be disciplined about all of this, they say. We gotta be really careful. Why? Because you'd have to arrest everybody? I don't know. I think the broader public policy and national security angle is worth stating plainly. If wealthy private actors can use tax jurisdictions, academic donations, and opaque financial networks to build operational capabilities in sensitive fields such as human genome stuff and reproduction, then a precedent is set. The structural danger is systematic, and we are all at risk. Like, we are all in trouble. The problems that allowed Epstein to pursue his ambitions are not unique just to him. I mean, look, dude, who knows what Diddy was going through? The fact that they just was like, nope, Diddy's innocent, and then they covered it over in a single day makes me so mad. I cannot believe, and nobody cares. That's another thing that was covered up by Charlie Kirk. Nobody cares. Even though for years we've been talking about Diddy. All of a sudden, nobody cares. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. There's essentially no punishment for you as a celebrity or a rich person. It doesn't even seem like you have to be a celebrity. It seems like you just have to have a little bit of money. And if you do, you can molest as many people as you want. You can child traffic, you can rape, you can commit terrible atrocities that are so bad that your lawyer literally has to quit because she can't defend you. And you'll still get off innocent, baby.
Oh my God! Wow!
Yeah, sounds chewy. That's a lot to chew on. Chew on. Damn it. We're in trouble, guys. We are in trouble. So the work of moving from hypothesis, which is all we can do right now because they won't let us see anything. So there's no way that we can prove, right? Because you have to have proof. And they have it all, so we'll never get it. But if you believe in a system that works, you would have to come to the understanding that this isn't theater. Even though I think it is. Well, you basically have to pursue this very surgically and very professionally and very legally, and that's why it will never work. It involves subpoenas, FOIA requests, review of procurement and payment record. It requires asking all these narrow and legally defensible questions. It requires asking who has signed the routing memo for the MIT gift and who approved any donor-defined program conditions. It requires asking what was paid for and by whom when shipping manifests show lab-grade equipment arriving at properties under Epstein's control. Why would that be necessary? What is he doing? I thought he was just raping little girls. Why does he have all this medical equipment? Is it so he can keep them alive as long as possible while he's torturing them, or is there something else going on here? Because they both seem similar in the fear factor realm. They both seem pretty messed up. They both seem pretty evil. These are the exact questions, though, a federal investigator or an experienced investigative reporter would need to ask to get anywhere. And the public should insist that those questions be asked and answered. Because the record shows meetings, flights, and institutional emails that are troubling enough to require formal document discovery. And we also have witnesses who are basically begging for their day in court. The record shows procurement patterns that, if verified through invoices and manifests, could prove that a program with Project Genesis characteristics moved beyond aspiration to actual operation. And the record also leaves open the possibility that many of Epstein's ambitions were aspirational and not realized. So he had these fucked up ideas, but he also had more that he didn't really get to. This dude was a monster, and everybody affiliated with him as well. My beard is so big and my mustache is so smooth that my face keeps, like, my mouth keeps moving down in the mask. I have to talk like this. Anyway. Guys, you know how dangerous this could be, because if you're watching this podcast, odds are you've heard some of my other stuff, because very rarely do new people happen upon my show, because I'm insane, and I'm an asshole, and I'm a believer, but also an asshole, and that confuses a lot of people. And lately, I've been getting a lot of death threats and weird messages that I can't explain, and so I am going a little bit insane, which is why I'm absolutely not going to sit on this stuff anymore. Because what we're seeing from Epstein is more than just a bunch of creepy, rich people taking advantage of the weakest and most at risk amongst our people. It demonstrates the capacity for private actors to attempt to privatize biology, and how public vigilance and exposure can't even stop it. There's no stopping it. The documents will show the proof, and that's why you can't see them. But before you go, let's talk about Trump. You fat man. You're not getting off that easy. People are asking questions about Trump now. And the short answer up front in plain language is the claim that Donald Trump was an agent or FBI informant about Epstein is just a hot new rumor with a very thin spine of evidence. Excuse me. A very thin spine of evidence. People can't prove that he was an agent, it seems. You would think that you would be able to prove it, but it doesn't seem like it can actually be proved. And this whole thing comes from a few high-profile public comments and a flood of online reaction. Like, it just went viral. It was basically the lie that they just said, this is the way it is, and then they closed the coffin on the whole thing. There are verified facts showing Trump and Epstein socialized in past decades, and that their names appear in Epstein flight and contact records together. There is no public, credible documentary proof that Trump served as an FBI informant. This story came from high-profile politicians just saying stuff, and then the internet running with it. House Speaker Mike Johnson publicly suggested that Trump at one point reported Epstein or acted to get Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, and implied Trump tried to take this stuff down. That line was amplified across social and cable media, and it turned into headlines and memes suggesting that Trump was a government informant. Now, I don't think that anybody has ever said directly, like with assertion, Trump is an FBI informant. But what they are saying is, at a minimum, he worked with the FBI to take this guy down. I don't know. Sometimes Trump does like stuff that makes a lot of sense and I like it and it's good for the world. And then other times it's like, I don't know, dude. I can't really see you as an FBI informant. But what do I know, dude? This world is so crazy. Lately, I've been learning stuff that I can't even say out loud. It's just so crazy. It's so... Nothing is real. Nothing is real. Everything's fake, but everything's real at the same time. You know, and in the middle of it, they're just killing us all. While we're confused, and we're running around, and we're looking for answers, they're just popping us. And they're just putting in more restrictions. And they're just constantly shoveling over the questions that they can't answer that we continue to ask them. The U.S. Department of Justice has all that proof of that relationship. So when Mike Johnson claimed that Trump may have been an informant, you know, is that like an unclassified way of saying it? Just because there's too much tape to get through to prove it? Mike Johnson's just going to be like, I don't know, guys, but maybe Trump was an informant. Wink, wink. I mean, I could totally see this administration doing something like that. Just dropping hot news like that without telling you how hot it actually is. If this claim had merit, there's a couple realistic, kind of non-cinematic ways that it might have happened. One, Trump could have privately reported a rumor to local authorities or to federal agents, informing them of possible criminal conduct that he heard about. And that would be a kind of one-off voluntary tip and easy to verify by checking intake logs, right? We could find that out pretty quick. Two, Trump could have cooperated informally through intermediaries. Basically, a call from him to a Palm Beach official or to a Palm Beach police officer or something like that, who then passed evidence to the feds, and that would leave behind local police notes, right? At least an email. How did you inform, Mr. Trump? Mr. Trump, how did you tell the FBI that you think Epstein is a bad guy? How did you tell him this, Mr. Trump? Can you tell me, Mr. Trump, how did you tell him this? How did you tell this FBI that you're not pedophile? Yeah, Epstein do this. 3, a formal informant relationship with FBI or federal prosecutors would leave internal records that we would easily be able to find. There would be 302 interview reports, there would be FBI source files, and probably a paper trail in redactions that would also be contained in case files. That is heavy evidence and would show up in discovery or in internal FBI memos under FOIA or court processes, and you should be able to find it just by Googling it. It should be public record because this concerns humanity. But what does the public record say? The most important near-term evidence against the informant story is the public denials and testimony from law enforcement. The FBI director has literally stated publicly that he never spoke with Trump about Epstein files and that there is no evidence Trump served as an informant. Congressional hearings have included pointed exchanges about what documents exist and what has been released. So far, lawmakers pressing this issue have not produced FBI memos naming Trump as a source. Why not? If that's your nail in the coffin, why the heck not? But as I've been trying to tell people on this channel since I started it, absence of evidence is not proof of absence. But in a case that would leave bureaucratic records, silence from official sources is a strong negative data point. You gotta clear that air, buddy. You cannot just say something like that, say there's no documents whatsoever, and then not provide the document where he informed the FBI. What kind of people are investigating this? If you gave me 3 days with what the FBI has, I would solve this. I would have a list. I would have people begging me for freedom. I would have people trying to kill me. I would have everything going. And you guys, I'm telling you, this would be such an easy thing to prove. The whole world would change in a single day. One single day. Because it would involve thousands of arrests. You could convince me that Epstein, Ghislaine, and Gates, who I think is really just the new champion of the operation. I think, guys, anybody could just open and close this book so quickly. because the evidence is all there. The name, I mean, it's all proof. So little of it is hearsay. It's all proof. All you got to do is show us the documents. The life is in the blood.
Sometimes I just don't know who to trust. Show me how to move when I'm through the mud. I believe in you because you're true enough. Yeah. You know this life can get kind of critical. Snakes can leave you out in the cold, but they ain't really who I'm living for. They don't even know I keep that heat on the side of me. I keep that heat down the side of me. Pause. Gain wisdom from all of my scars, but I ain't really talking Lion King. I got a big heart.